All right, what's up, Warriors? We're excited. Christine, Dean, and I are here. Christine, how's it going in your world?
Well, David, when you started recording, your screen went black. So I don't know if it's just me, but I literally cannot see you. I don't know if that's true for our guests or not, but I can't see you.
Oh, well, I can see me and I can see you. So let's just rock with it and see. But you know I'm here. So,
I do. I'm talking to this disembodied voice, though. Is this going to be a fun episode?
okay. Well, I'll try not to give you any verbal or nonverbal signals here in, in the in the view that we usually use to say, but that's okay. So today's episode, we're going to do something different a little bit. We're going to kind of red pill you on why AI isn't here to replace your hustle, but it's here to ignite or reignite it. And so, if you're not using AI, if you're not using BeeKonnected, if you're not using warriornetworking.com, I'm going to say you need to consider doing that to fuel your follow up. If you listen to some of our episodes prior to this one, which on the podcast is episode 7, in the videos, live videos from BeeKonnected, it's episode 50. So we're kind of gone to the audio podcast. So in that case, just so you know, there's no confusion. It's the same show, just we're taking the audio and blowing it out to all those platforms and starting to get some questions and things from that, which actually will fuel our show today. So really, we want to dive head first, and I'm going to let Christine go off the diving board first here, but talk about AI tools, BeeKonnected, and how that it's not just to grow, but it's to, and I think from a marketer standpoint, Christine, you would agree with that. We talked about some things to explode or take things to the next level when it comes to AI. We talked a lot about last time about scaling, and we used that term a few times. So, so we're talking kind of next level strategy. And the first thing to get past is the fact that the automation issues, right? But tell me what you think, Christine, about scaling and some of the key points that come to you, because I've got some questions from some of the folks in the audience on authenticity and integration with other things and the strategy scaling. So there's a lot of things we can go. We got 30 minutes. So anyway, and welcome. I'm going to mute you so that we can we go, but appreciate you being here. All right. So anyway, the question on the table is thinking about scaling and authenticity and those kinds of things. What are, as you approach using AI, using warriornetworking.com, BeeKonnected, like whatever you're using, what are the things that are going through your mind?
Well, so scaling and authenticity to me are two things that go hand in hand really well, but those are two different issues. And so I kind of want to divide those up when I hit them. Um, the let's hit actually, we talked a lot about scaling last time. Let me hop on authenticity. And and really, when you think about that, you want the messages to come across your style, your brand, you, right? And that's where it really helps when you're using AI. You want it to be authentic. So you want to create a brand voice that you're using, right? That you've gone through and created. It's asked your values. It wants to know about your goals. It wants to know about your services. It wants to know who you help, why you help them, what's important about that, what's important in your business, and what kind of good you're trying to do in the world, whatever it is, all that is part of your brand. So once you've created that brand voice, now you can use that to help guide you. So that's going to help keep it authentic, right? Because it's coming from your value system with what it's creating. So you've got those guidelines. Think of it as the bumper rails. If you've ever seen the kids going bowling, right? And they sometimes they'll have the little bumper rails so that the ball doesn't accidentally go into the side so they can actually play and it goes down the center. Well, the bumper rails is your brand voice, keeping that bowling ball in the middle so that you're always on brand.
Hmm.
Now, if we got that as kind of the authentic, right, creating it from that authentic side, right? Now you can take that and apply it on the scaling side because now you can have an assistant, you can have someone else in your business come in and use that brand voice to help create things. Right. So you've got the authenticity and now you've got the opportunity to scale. And that's why this is a game changer for businesses is it makes it so much easier to have other people on your team. Because when you think about your brand, well, is it authentic? Okay. Well, are you creating it authentic to your brand? And when you have a team of people anyway who are creating things, now you're having to worry about are they doing it in a way that reflects your brand and your values? Well, now that you've got this AI tool, it helps make sure that happens. So I would argue that using AI actually keeps your brand more authentic or gives you an opportunity to make your brand even more authentic than if you just had different people in your business writing things without those brand guidelines. There's no guarantee that they're going to stay on brand. And I think there's a better chance with that if you have a brand voice.
Well, first of all, it's awesome. And what you just said, because the brand voice, we tend to throw that into the marketing category, right? It's like that's brand, but it's not as magical as you think. It is really just as Christine points out, it's the consistency. It's continuing to reinforce your message as opposed to contradict your message. And every time you have a communication, and whether it's yourself, like you said, having an assistant to help you, um, you can easily kind of go, like you say, off the rails one way or the other. And all of a sudden they're thinking, well, I thought warrior networking was all about serving first and not selling, but this sounds like sales. And all of a sudden it feels like it's not me. It's not like what they would consider consistent. So I love that. The other thing that I love, and I'm going to connect the dots just a little bit here, Christine, with the way you said it, is that from a business standpoint, and again, for those who don't know, I have a business degree, a couple of business degrees. That's what my focus was for 45 years. So it's about determining what is effective first. So that's where your authenticity and the things where you're getting traction with your audience are critical. And you don't want to scale if you're not scaling with your authentic self. Does that make sense? That's kind of what you were saying, is that before you start talking about creating an automation to reach out to everybody, and you used an example last week or the week before, I don't remember, where it sounded salesy or whatever, and so I kind of went back to that. But the point is, until you know it's effective, you probably want to make sure you have that kind of dialed in, and you can use AI to do that, right?
Yeah, and actually, I'm going to piggyback on that. One of the things you mentioned was salesy, and well, it sounds too salesy. And really, if your brand is not intended to be salesy, then you just need to tell it when you build your brand that's sitting in the background while you're creating things, right? That brand voice needs to say, not salesy, not pitchy, not right. And it's okay to give that directions. There's times I've asked for things with the AI and I'm like, ooh, so always remember garbage in, garbage out. So if you give it garbage directions, you're going to get garbage results. If you want to fine tune the what you put into it, right? So that it says, extend and create an email series talking about whatever your service is. And if you say it's important that this comes across very friendly, sharing and offering advice, not pitchy, not salesy. Focus on building relationships. So if you actually put that in the directions or put that in your brand, right? then it knows how to operate that. Once I told it to, no, this is not sales, make this about building relationships, it completely changed how it wrote it.
Yes, and I think just as a little teaser, and we're not going to get into the details, but I've been listening to what we've been saying, what you've been saying, others
Wow, that was great.
on our
That
podcast.
was great about putting that in there.
Yeah, that
Christine, about building relationships.
right. Say what you wanted to do, and it's just like what we've talked about on previous episodes, Zip. I mean, it's like if you have a way of approaching it, have a brand voice. The thing is, I started to say with Magi, I actually used the brand voice assistant to help me build my brand voice. And I fed it stuff. And I know, Christine, you did that for warriornetworking.com. It'll be interesting to see how it does. But I put that in there and I said, now create, here's some questions that I got. Here's some things. I want to answer these in a way that's consistent with this podcast. And I fed it some of this transcripts from the podcast as well as warriornetworking.com. And I said, now craft kind of a journey that will go for 30 minutes. And it gave me kind of, here, do this and talk about. So we're following that kind of that plan. And it's not that I'm doing anything wrong here. I'm actually using it as a good assistant, right? Just like Christine says. And when I saw something I didn't like, and I did exactly what you said, I just said, no, I'm not going to be doing that. I need to dial that back or pump that up or whatever, right?
Perhaps just give it new direction. Say, wait a minute, that doesn't work. Change this, add this, make it more focused, right? You just need to give it the directions that it wants. It goes where it thinks you want to go, but it may not always be headed the way that you want it to go. So you just have to tell it. And, you're reminding me of how you can use this for scaling. And I was just talking with somebody last night about this, about a lot of things you'll hear when it comes to coaching space is having a signature, or like with signature talk, a signature method, right? And so we're trying to brand ourselves as being something very specific. And that's true for anybody in their brand. What do they stand for, right? So the AI can, if you were to take, for example, several different recordings that you had and transcribe them of how you work with clients. Okay. And then you were to upload it and you asked it to find the patterns and formulas that you're using, because you may have a format that you naturally do, but you don't think about it as a formula because you just do it naturally. That's what you do. So you can ask it to take it and create that formula for you based on the information you fed it. So if I gave it 5 different coaching sessions of me coaching, I guarantee it's going to see some formulas in there that I didn't even realize existed. And you can actually use the AI to pinpoint what formula you're using and outline that for you. And all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, that's my signature move. That's what I do. So sometimes it brings clarity to a situation. Once you've done that, now you've got your formula, right? Now it's easier to scale. If you wanted to bring in other coaches that do the same thing that you did and you wanted to teach them your formula, and right. So now there's opportunities. Now you've got it out of your head and into an organized format that you can work with.
Yeah, and the key is, there's a couple of key points. One is in your strategy, you need to think of iteration. You need to think of this being a journey with your assistant rather than just a one shot, put the chat in, whatever it is, and then if I don't like it, then I just say AI sucks. It's not that at all. And the other thing is, one of the questions that came out is, how do we automate without losing that human touch in our messaging? And we talked about the brand voice and we talked about those kinds of things. I think in previous episodes, we talked about the conversational journey that you're on with somebody, and not losing that continuity in your interaction. Because as soon as I inject something, let's say I'm having an ongoing dialogue with Zip or Christine or somebody, and as soon as I just kind of throw something randomly in, it's like, okay, is this a new person? Where did this come from? Or if it goes back and retreads what we already did, then that also feels like an automation, right? So that feels inauthentic. So what do you think about that, Christine? What are some of your techniques? Because you're really about kind of maintaining that authenticity in addition to brand voice in your journey with your clients and or helping them on their journey with their clients.
Right. Like you said, coming back to that whole authentic and building the relationship being so important, just keep reiterating that into your brand as you're going. It's so important, personalizing it. One of the things we talked about before when we had Nathan on the show one time was the idea of how can I add value to this person? Right. I mean, that right there, you're personalizing it and you're using AI to help you personalize it. Is it that you're not being authentic? No, you're trying to be so authentic because your value of, feeling that other people are important, that's what you're applying through this process. Right. So when you take the time to use your AI to research the other person, find out what's important to them, and explore opportunities on how you can collaborate. I mean, I don't know how many people spent time doing that before their calls before, but now with AI, you can do that and bring that to the table in the conversation right off the bat if you want.
Yeah, and I think that is brilliant, absolutely, because when you're thinking about it, the hardest thing for me to do, and I don't think I'm unique, is I know what's the top of my mind. I don't know what's at the top of your mind. And by doing that little thing that you just described, which is here's everything I think I know about Christine, and here's everything from other sources. And that's the beauty of warriornetworking.com, is because if you create a warriornetworking.com profile, we can connect literally all of your social feeds, all your affiliations, your website, all those things. And you say, well, what's the value of that? Well, I can take that warriornetworking.com profile that I have built for you or for my client, and my client is anybody who's in warriornetworking.com, by the way. I can create a persona and a message that is important to you, maybe even more revealing, like you were saying, like you go, oh, wow, I didn't realize that I had that methodology. I didn't realize that person really cared that much about that. But it helps bring, it's like your assistant saying, hey, you're going into this meeting, make sure you talk about their family, their this or that. These are all things that are important. And I know you're going to be wound up and go in there, but make sure you don't lose these things at the top of your mind. So that's the brilliance of the strategy you just described, I think, is it kind of forces us out of our own head and forces us to really look at things from their perspective. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I think it gives you a great starting ground, right? When you're looking for ways to build a relationship, a lot of that is finding things that you might have in common, areas of interest that you share. I had somebody I talked to, Oz, one of my business partners, he was saying that they started talking sports and hockey. They talked about hockey for a half hour. By that time, they were best of friends and they were all eager to do business together, right? You just never know where the commonalities might be, right? So if you have a tool that can help you find those easier, why wouldn't you, right? And if you've got your brand already and your brand voice and your website, and so it's got access to who you are, and I said, how can my skills best help this person, right? I mean, what clarity is that walking into a meeting? How awesome is that?
Yeah, and I think that one of the questions, I'm going to lunch off of what you just said and bring up a question that came to us after the last episode. And I don't know if it was the last episode, but said, I'm great at one-to-one networking, but I struggle to scale. So and I want new contacts. So I want to give an answer, and then Christine, I'd like for you to edit it or give me one of the things is with BeeKonnected.com, which we've had since the beginning, we have a connection generator. Christine has mentioned in previous shows how that algorithm, those things, you put in the things you care about. You kind of give the AI that heads up, maybe that this is what I care about. Here's who I like to do business with. And then that AI matches you to other people. Now, one of the questions I have trouble, I'm on BeeKonnected. I'm struggling to get them engaged with me. You've heard that before, right, Christine?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, I've identified that Christine and I are aligned by the AI. What can I do to use AI, use Warrior Networking, use BeeKonnected to advance that relation, to get them to respond? There you go. That's
absolutely. There's a fine line between reaching out and stalking, right? So you kind of, it's how you do it, and it's how friendly you are, and how you're approaching it. If you're coming at them with sales breath, right, a lot of times they might see that you're there, but they're ignoring you. Okay, so approaching with the idea of love to collaborate with you, love to explore options, right? That kind of thing. Like we said, things that you have in common. Hey, I noticed that we have this, this, and this in common. I think we would work really well together. I would love to talk to you about collaboration opportunities. Well, that shows that you took the time to do the research to find out what areas you do have in common, right? So that right there puts you head and tails over someone who just messaged them and said, hi.
Well, and the thing that you point out there, and connecting the dots with the question saying, I'm good at person to person or face to face networking. You've got to think beyond what your experience normally is. If you're like an in-person networker, like I am, like we've been doing for 11 years, Richardson Plano version of Warrior Networking in person. Now with the K2K platform with BeeKonnected, you already have your own virtual meeting room where you can have those. You can conduct those one-to-ones with people like I have in Sweden and Australia, in other parts of the country that I can have relationships with. And I can take those skills that I've developed in in-person networking and port them over to my virtual meeting room, where the first step I recommend in a strategy standpoint is, now that you know I exist and now that we know we have some alignment here, let's have a one-to-one. Let's get to know each other a little bit before I ever even think about what kind of messaging or what, yes, I want to know what you care about going into that. And you can do that research as we talked about, or Christina's shared, on LinkedIn, on your warriornetworking.com profile, on your BeeKonnected profile, if you've got that built out, which you should, and those kinds of things, right? But now let's take it first with clear the slate. I kind of know what you care about, but then you go into question mode. You start asking them and listening rather than pitching. Is that kind of your approach, Christine? I think it is. We're very aligned.
Yeah, absolutely. And a part of that, I think the challenge is for those that are used to in person, they're like, you're in front of me. I can speak to you. You can't ignore me. I am right here in front of you. Right. So part of their challenge is moving into an online environment is, how do I get them to respond? Right. So and that's where really it's a great opportunity to find somebody in multiple locations. If you were to start with, for example, the Warrior Networking directory, we've got multiple ways for you to reach somebody because they've got their links to their social media on there, right? So you can see, oh, okay, it says they have a link here on LinkedIn. Okay, well, let me connect with them on LinkedIn. Oh, look, there's a spot here where they have their Facebook. Great, let me connect with them on Facebook. Oh, let me send them a message on Instagram, right? Let me follow them, right? So there's ways to become part of their ecosphere. So the Warrior Networking directory is a great place to start to find people if you want to find them in more than one way. Otherwise, you kind of have to do some sleuthing and go through some searching. But that gets you, the idea is to reach out to them with something that really grabs their interest and makes them want to have that conversation with you. You got to get that one-on-one set up, right? So it's one of the things, the tools that we had talked about before was also the My Most Trusted. And the My Most Trusted is that Chrome extension that follows you around on LinkedIn. So part of what it is you can go to somebody's profile and it pops up with a profile summary. It breaks down what the AI thinks their personality types are on the DISC scale, on the Enneagram scale, right? And then at the bottom, the very last line says, chances are they would be interested in talking about these 3 topics. These are the kinds of topics that would get them excited. And then it says, ask ChatGPT to write a message for you. Well, taking that into consideration, right? So you could literally say, okay, they're probably interested in reading their profile. Yeah, I could see why they would want to talk about it. And you send off a message that's personalized with something they're interested in talking about and get that conversation started, right? Now you can try and set up that one-on-one. But that first interaction, it needs to grab their eye and you need to stand above the noise. AI is a great way to do that. I mean, there's automations that, send out to a bunch of people, hi, I see we have things in alignment. I think we should connect. Yeah, we know those are automations. We're not really buying that. That doesn't really count as personalized. Nice try, but not.
Yeah.
But if you were to use that Chat GPT thing to send that message right there, and it's got the profile summary within the My Most Trusted, that's going to be a much more successful campaign, personalized campaign.
Yeah. So that's we've reached the top of the hour, and so I'm gonna kind of put a pin in that right there. And the most important thing I think we're talking about here is you just gave us another nugget here that you you just glossed over, and that is with warriornetworking.com as a tool and BeeKonnected's connection generator. You can connect with people that are intentionally being on BeeKonnected. You talk about intentional networking. So you find people that are intentionally there. However, if they're new there, and this is the thing that I deal with, I got thousands of connections on BeeKonnected, but there are people that are new, they haven't really engaged on the platform. So the brilliance you came in the strategy is get them in warriornetworking.com, which is what we're doing. Get all of their places they hang out. Kind of, this is a marketing thing, right? And then maybe you can't get their attention on BeeKonnected, but you can connect to them on LinkedIn. You can connect to them on their Facebook. Maybe they're real heavy into Instagram, or maybe they're on TikTok, or wherever they're at, right? You can then, in your strategy of going to warriornetworking.com, figure out where they're all at, kind of get a thumbnail of what they care about, and then set up a one-to-one with them and just try to bring them back to your virtual room as quickly as you can without a lot of sales overhead, if you will, in the process, right? It's not that once you've got their attention, then you can start that authentic conversation, right? So this is brilliant. We didn't get even close to the things that I thought we could talk about 30 minutes. And there's a bunch of other questions for those listening. You didn't hear your question. I've got probably 15 questions that people have submitted. So we'll get back to those on other episodes. Christine, thank you for joining us. Nathan is traveling. He may be back next week, but we're going to continue to go along this path. And we're going to continue to talk about really exploding your impact from a networking standpoint using warriornetworking.com, using BeeKonnected, and using all the various sundry of AI tools that we'll discover along the way. And that's why we call this Sherpas. Is Christine's further down the road. So we'll be back next Friday, same time, and we'll have another 30-minute discussion about this. And you can, if you're seeing this in replay, you can schedule a one-to-one with me if you want to get direct conversation. You can reach out to Christine on BeeKonnected, on the Warrior Networking, anywhere you can. She's all over the place, so you can reach out to her if you want to get started on this journey of really exploding your impact in networking using the tools that are now available to you. So thanks everybody for being here. It's been a lot of fun. And Christine, thank you.
Always fun to have conversations with you. I like the the fact that we approach things kind of a thought leadership kind of angle, right? We want to increase everybody's mindset and how they're doing business. We want to see you succeed.
Beautiful. And I agree. And that's why we're so aligned. So we'll see you guys back here next week. Have a beautiful weekend.